Oh, and we are live. Hello, world. Happy Monday. Welcome to our recording of the latest On the Ball podcast, which is very exciting. The guys are here now. Look, they're right in front of you. There's no hiding anymore. We just straight in with it. Going to give you their faces. And they're not on mute either. Are you, gentlemen?
No, Michael. No, Michael.
Thank you.
It's nice to be allowed out of the back room for this bit.
How many
Indeed,
seasons
right?
has it taken? 4 to be trusted?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, there was a series of tests that you didn't realize, but you did pass them all.
I'm
just going to share the pod. Just going to share the pod as I normally do. How are you, gentlemen? Although I will ask you that on the podcast, so you may not want to answer properly yet.
Yeah, I'll withhold my answer.
I'm not creative enough to come up with 2 different answers on the spot.
I mean, I'm rarely creative to come up with one answer, to be honest, when you ask me, other than say, yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
I love it.
We have already off air commented on the outfit of choice for all.
I know we've done very well.
Mm-hmm.
Are we all off to play cricket after this?
Oh, if only.
Or join some kind of cult. That's
yes.
what I hope we were. That's what I hope.
One of the worst cults, probably, as well. one of the most famously alarming cults.
And this is why we're not allowed on.
As we're all dressed in.
Yes. Shush now. That's all shared. A question for the masses who are watching, all of you already. We're obviously going to try and cover, not in great detail, but we will sort of touch on the things that have happened since we were last on, because we're not going to be doing these podcasts every week. If there's anything you want to ask and you want us to speak about briefly, please do ask us, either on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube in the comments. He says, I do probably then need Twitter up, but or X or whatever in God's name it's called now. So yeah, let us know what you think and what you'd like us to speak about, and we will touch on those things when we get the chance. I will get my notifications up in a tick. Other than that, I reckon we crack on. Anyone disagree with that sentiment?
No, I can't think of any more religious groups that we can offend. So let's go.
Yeah, that sounds like a great thing to say. So let me work out. Get your comments and questions in. Let's crack on with the recording, and I hope you all have a brilliant podcast and enjoy it muchly. Let's crack on then with this bit here. Hello all, and welcome to edition 136 of On the Ball, the latest noise. Oh wow, I've written that really badly. Oh, it's take 2. Hello all, and welcome to edition 136 of On the Ball, the latest dose of noise to be ignored by Norwich City. I'm Michaelbailey. Joining us for the pod is Norwich numberwang chief at NCFCnumbers, also known as our very own Steve Sanders.
Hi, Michael.
And former Norwich City head of content and program editor, Dan Brigham.
Hello, Michael.
And also a corrected version of the intro, which I'm going to edit out of the audio. I probably best. So there we go. Sorry about that. Together tonight, we will work through City's opening double bubble, Max's parting gift, and all aboard the 136-point train. Steady on. Now's our chance. Come on, let's make a pod. I've not dropped that line since the last pod. I probably should have done, but there we go. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Hope you're all well out there. How are we doing, Steve? How are you?
Very good. Very good, actually. Like I'm well up for it again. I just can't remember the last time I felt excited to come on this. No, to talk about Norwich City. You know, it's it feels like something's happening. But you know, 2 games, so gotta stay grounded. But yeah, very, very excited to be talking about it, I think.
well, this is it. We're going to up the levels, because when we did our preview podcast, some people said it was one of the most miserable things they'd ever experienced, which I thought was a tad harsh. But also, that's hey, everyone's entitled to an opinion. If that's what they think, you can't argue with it. So
I think we should put it on the trailer for the whole season. We should trail it. A miserable experience for all involved.
Let's hope the gap between this podcast and Norwich City reality continues to be vast. Daniel, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Michael. Very happy to be back.
Yes, lovely to have you back.
I guess, like Steve as well, my enthusiasm levels have gone through the roof. I think what was it, August the 4th?
Gone through the Louvre.
Good start. I think the day before the whole game, I had no enthusiasm for it really at all. Just on a come down from the Ashes as well, which I absolutely loved, and then the thought of having to watch Championship football again was unappealing. But it's amazing what 6 goals and 2 good performances can do to you. Just shows sort of the fickle nature of it, I suppose. But yeah, very enthused now, and looking forward to the next 44 games this season.
That's the spirit, and all those 136 points. Thanks for those watching us live on your chosen social media platform. We want to hear from you during the recording, so please get in touch. Anything you want us to talk about, anything you want to ask us, anything you want to say, file it through on YouTube or Facebook or hopefully Twitter. I'll keep an eye on that myself, and we will endeavor to look at those over the course of the next 40 minutes or so. Strict deadline tonight, I've decided. And if you're listening live, if you're not listening live, actually, if you are like the opposite of listening live, which is not listening live, but listening in the future, and you want to get in touch as well, then you can do that by emailing us at Twitterkers, Twitter, KERS, @icloud.com. I haven't changed that address to Xkers because that would be silly. Let's crack on with this season's first. Oh, no, that's from last week. As you can see, we are completely underprepared. I had 2 weeks prepared for this podcast. That also means I'm probably going to leave in the error at the start now as well, because it's just too much fun. All the errors are staying in, because that's this podcast. Let's crack on for the second time this season with our headline act. The reality, of course, is I am a high-class professional, and all of these mistakes are purely there for bants. Right, crack on then, shall we? It's a promising start. Norwich City beat Hull at home. Carrow Road was a wonderful place. Everyone who was there, pretty much, I mean, I haven't spoken to everyone who was there, but a lot of people who were there said how it was the first time in a long time they had felt something at Carrow Road, which is obviously delightful. And then, of course, we got all the fun at Southampton. One of the most lively games I've seen in a very long time, and loads of stuff to unpick from that as well. We won't go through all the details, of course, especially as Hull was like a week ago. But what has been most promising for you guys? Steve, would you like to go first? What's really floated your boat in these 180 minutes of Championship spectacular?
God, I mean, there's been a lot, and yeah, I did feel like we came away from the pod a couple of weeks ago, whenever it was, maybe being a little bit too down on them. That's easy to say with the benefit of hindsight, and maybe I'm about to get carried away after less than 5% of the season.
Go on, 136 points, Steve.
Oh yeah, well at least 130, right? I mean, let's not be silly, but yeah, at least 130. I mean, I think it's just absolute chalk and cheese from what we saw last season, and I think the difference was apparent sort of first 5-10 minutes of that Hull game, and it's kind of continued since then. Obviously, still a few things to iron out. They've conceded a few goals, but Zoe said it in a couple of weeks ago. She just wanted to feel again, and I think that's been the main thing. It's almost the points weren't necessarily that important, or aren't necessarily that important at this stage. Although, let's be fair, 4 points, I think, you'd had to have been certified to have expected any more than that, 2 weeks ago. So yeah, let's not knock that. But I think, there seems to be a tangible plan. They seem to be fitter. They're buying into what Wagner wants them to do, seemingly all of a sudden. And I think it can't be understated or overstated, or whichever way you state it. the difference the new signings have made. I just think Barnes, although he hasn't scored yet, has just makes, basically sign me up for 46 games of him backing his ass into centre halves and making a nuisance of himself. Stacey, I think, has been brilliant, and they have unearthed. I think the ace in the pack is J-Ro. Like, he has come in and performed way above what I expected in the first two games. Obviously, scored in them both. And yeah, there just seems to be a new level of belief. Now, I know we didn't win and we could have won and it could have been 6 points, but I think let's be fair. I don't think we could have asked for much better than those first two games. So yeah, it suddenly feels exciting to be a Norwich fan again. And it's been a while since we've been able to say that, I think.
True. J Rowe is, of course, Jonathan Rowe, and I'm only clarifying that because maybe the next time I type it, I'll end up writing Joe Rowe by accident again, or getting stuck in autocorrect, which it happily corrected me last time. Scored 2 fantastic goals, Mr. Rowe, which is really good because I think he was someone who we genuinely said we'd seen some real promise from in pre-season. So it's lovely when a player does that, and that can be a catalyst for them doing it during the season, because that's effectively what Todd Cantwell did in his proper breakthrough season. He looked good in pre-season and then really took it on into the competitive stuff. And it's true, isn't it, Dan? I mean, Norwich are playing, I find it really interesting. They're playing really aggressive football. They look really strong. They're moving the ball really quickly. They do look really good in transitions. They're not really seeking to control the game necessarily. From what I can tell, it seems a bit quicker than that. What I would say is that the moments where they've stepped off and conceded goals or dropped off, they've come from a noticeable drop in intensity. Although they are really fit, how long you can sustain an intensity and also whether they can get the hang of not conceding a goal when they're not doing that would obviously be quite handy. But it is interesting how it does seem to be, certainly in these 2 games so far, that bit different from a team that David Wagner was still coaching for 6 months of last season.
Yeah, I just wrote down drop-offs, actually, because I'd sort of noticed
finding it a bit boring, Dan, the pod.
Standard is dropping off after 4 years of doing this. But yeah, absolutely the positives. Plans. There are clear plans. One thing that we levelled at Dean Smith was that although he would change the way we played against certain opponents, it wasn't obviously always clear what he was trying to do, and because it wasn't particularly effective. Whereas Wagner, across Hull and Southampton, you did see sort of variations on the theme of being very aggressive and transitions. It was more trying to dominate the ball against Hull. Couldn't do that against Southampton because it's Russell Martin, Southampton. So we were happy to not dominate the ball, let them have possession, but was still aggressive in trying to win it back. So far, those 2 plans have been effective, which is really, really great to see. Like, there's a plan A and a sort of a really good variation on that plan A, which is sort of relatively familiar to our success under Farker as well. I would say, yeah, the drop-offs in intensity is when we look sort of most open, but I guess teams don't really reach peak fitness until sort of December time anyway, generally. So I think there's fitness to come. One concern, I guess, is the midfield is functioning really well at the moment, but there is a slight lack of depth in that midfield area, I think. So those drop-offs could impact the most important part of the pitch. But really, it's been just great to see. And scoring goals and creating chances, whether we're on the back foot or the front foot as well. So we're finding ways to create chances, which I'm sure we've all tried to forget at the end of last season, but we were not doing that. And now we are. And one thing I think in my note for the prediction podcast, I said I'd be moaning about Barnes and Sargent playing up front together rather than one of them playing together. But it's been, again, very effective. Barnes has played that sort of withdrawn striker role really well. As Steve says, he's used his arse to outstanding effect, the best use of arse since Grant Holt probably at Carrow Road so far. And they've linked up really well. Again, slight concern with that. If we're playing 2 strikers every game, do we need a 4th striker? If Barnes is injured, do we play another striker in that sort of 10 withdraw 9 role, or do we play a sort of Nunez in that role? So obviously early doors, lots of questions to answer, but really, really positive.
And I think the interesting point of a lot of that is I look at the squad and it does feel thinner in terms of, or not as deep in quality as last season, probably, even though maybe the 11 looks like so far it's going to be capable of doing more of what David Wagner wants. You just wonder if a couple of injuries out of that will hurt him in certain positions. But again, we shall have to see. Matt McNally, hello Matt. He got in touch on Twitter with a little message after the first pod of the season. He said, "Hi Michael, Sargi Bargi for the front two nickname. In terms of we needed a nickname.
Very good.
It's very good, isn't it?"
I was going to go with, this is not as good, Josh Lee Bargent, having had a huge having said.
There's a lot to be said
out the water. So
I appreciate you still said it, to be honest, because you didn't have to, but you did. So
I probably shouldn't have done. But,
No, I like it. So really good quality of goals. Gabriel Saras was a goal where from the moment it left his foot, I was like, that's in. You could just tell. It was such a beautiful strike. Hadn't really appreciated the quality of the build-up as well, like Josh Sargent's touch and playing around the corner, and then Gabby's sort of touches. Fantastic goal. John Rose header, remarkable header. And obviously scored a cracking goal against Hull. So real good quality goals, which, as you said, we had maybe...
The first one as well, Michael. Like, that was, Kenny long ball, Barnes kind of bringing it down, which again would not have happened last season. God love Pookie, but that wasn't his game. Playing it out to Stacey, great cross, and Sargent. I loved that goal. It's just a good team move.
That's very true. And Jack Stacey, we'll get on to Max, I'm sure, at some point, but one of the points why I think Jack Stacey brings more to the team is just his final third output is much better. You can see he's just a much better crosser of the ball. I think we've seen that in 2 games already, which isn't me saying necessarily he's a better player, but we don't need to have that discussion.
There's something a bit maybe Steeperman-esque about Barnes as well, the sort of chaos and physicality he brings behind a number 9, which we haven't had since Steeperman left. So it's good to just see a bit of physicality up in the sort of final third of the pitch.
Indeed.
Bring out like a crab celebration at some point, Barnes. That would really be...
Only if he's got like a person to punch each side.
Yeah.
It feels like Barnes' celebration is only going to be pure screaming, isn't it? He's not a man who will do any... There'll be no backflips or anything like that with him.
He might push someone into the goal because he's done that before. Yeah. So the goals wise, attacking wise, having sort of doubted what quality they would have going forwards. So far, so good, definitely. Defensively, as a fair few goals conceded. It's not. I did ask David Wagner about that in the press conference ahead of Southampton, and kind of felt bad because it probably felt like I was nitpicking. Like that goal you conceded, it was a bit all over the place against Hull. And I mean, I kind of felt from that one that Ben Gibson maybe shouldn't have ran sort of behind him because he cut off Duffy's only passing lane. But then David basically said, no, it's definitely Shane Duffy's fault because you don't kick it against someone who's in the way. All right, fair enough. I'm not a professional centre back, and never have been. And then, of course, we had the ridiculous from Shane Duffy, which I love that he tried to argue that it wasn't a penalty, but I don't think any push was bad enough in his back to have his hand in front of his head and punch the ball. The other goal was a bit sloppy. I thought Shea Adams' strike was good. And then we had the penalty at the end, which, yes, I know it was slightly soft and maybe but I mean, it was a penalty in my view. But I'm happy to take Dan's just put out a great face of absolutely. Of course it wasn't a penalty, Michael, you idiot.
Exactly what I was about to say. Yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, because Yanulis is trying to get around the side of him, and he steps right across to him and just falls to the ground under zero contact. If I did Michael,
it wasn't zero contact, was it? He pushed him in the back.
We're both quite slight men. He didn't push him in the back, though. Me and you are both very slight men, and even we wouldn't go down under that sort of contact.
I think you would have done. Have you seen how many times Grant Hanley has fallen over to win a free kick?
Yeah, and that's absolutely wonderful. But very, very rarely should they actually be free kicks, though.
I think there's one view from behind the goal where it probably looks like he's just fallen over, and I think the view from behind the play, you can see that
where he also looks like he's just fallen
Walker
over.
Peters steps in front because he knows Dimmy's coming, and Dimmy doesn't stop because he's no breaks, even though that's not what no breaks means. But it's quite a funny joke in this instance. And you just don't run into the back of him, even if you're not really touching.
Well, but there's got to be some sort of you've got to engage in the box. So I don't buy that the idea that he shouldn't do that means just give him a clear run at goal. Then there's got to be some level. There's a level of contact that's allowed in football.
Yeah, that's why you have
you've got to engage.
That's why you have defenders in front of the, between the goal and the player
Mm.
normally helps.
What's your view, Steve?
God, I feel like I'm going to massively cop out of this one, because I think it's one that if it's not getting overturned by VAR, right? If VAR is in that situation, I don't think they would overturn it if it didn't get given. I don't think it gets overturned if VAR is there. It's almost like your umpire's call, to go back to the cricketing analogy. I would be probably more annoyed at the no breaks, kind of just like deciding to career towards Walker Peters. I don't know. I just felt like he didn't need to go in at that force. I don't know. Like, personally, I can see why it was given. But yeah, interesting anomaly. And this is not a agenda against Norwich City thing. Of the last 20 penalties in our games, Norwich have only had 3 of them. So
I was going to say, this is the point I would make. I think it's over-eager from Dimmy, and I think that causes the 90% of the issue. If it happens to boot on the other foot and someone goes into a Norwich player in the box, I would then expect it to be given. So
I think I would. Yeah,
that's the thing. I'm not going to come on in 4 weeks' time and say, "Oh, he's gone down too easily in the box." If someone does that,
I genuinely wouldn't.
But it should be given. But that's just like anything. I just give my view, and that was my view. And Dan, you're allowed to disagree with me. That's fine. We're doing man of the matches, aren't we, for this season, Dan?
Yes, we are. We're whoever. If we've watched the game, the five of us who are sort of the mainstays of this podcast are then delivering our own personal man of the matches at the end of each match, with the idea that at the end of the season we anoint an OTB player of the season.
So organised, amazing. Well, I can tell you,
I've taken on Steve's spreadsheet mantle and have started collating.
We're going to compare spreadsheets after the pod. Get our spreadsheets out.
We're not going to read them all out on here, but I just wanted to say we are going to do that. So we'll probably refer to it over the course of the season. And Dan, you can have mine now.
Yes, please.
Which for Southampton was.
Can I guess? Can I guess?
Gabriel Sarah. Oh, sorry. Did you want to guess? Who are you going to guess?
It was going to be Sarah.
The thing I would say though, and I think in the end I gave it to Gabby against Hull as well. But I think that's because that's
I'll just check my spreadsheet.
That's off the back of him probably only playing well for about 60 minutes. Like, he still seems to be disappearing in the second half, and that he's not had much preseason. So he's probably not at full pelt yet, but his 60 minutes have probably still been him being the best player on the pitch until he
I can confirm you did give it to Sarah at Hull as well.
There we go. Which I did watch in full.
So is Sarah leading the OTB player? Are we allowed to divulge who's?
I'd say we probably shouldn't do this every week, but he is an early leader, but certainly not a blanket leader, though.
Well, of course, one thing that would scupper this a little bit is if he disappeared, because he.
Well, I don't know. He's still got enough time to get a few more man of the matches in. Maybe sustain that, even if he leaves at the end of this month.
I think if he knew that he was leading the OTB Player of the Season run, he'd be going nowhere. He's gonna want to stick around to pick up that title at the end of the season, surely. He
looks at a very high level compared to everyone else on the pitch so far, and he has done on both games. Is anyone worried that he won't be here come the closure of the transfer window?
It would have to be a mammoth bid now, wouldn't it? Because it feels like we know after Max's departure and Rashica's likely departures that we don't have to sell him. And sure, you'd like to think the sort of balance in between needing a bit of money. We'll get lots of money if we get promoted to the Premier League. We need Sarah to get promoted to the Premier League. Surely on that difficult equation, we would keep him at this stage. Surely.
And I think he is so pivotal to our chances this season that it would be kind of like, it would go down so badly if they got rid of him. I mean, Nunez is would be an adequate replacement, I guess, but he's not going to have anywhere near the impact. I mean, Sarah is, from the first 2 games, kind of running it, really. And I think it's probably no coincidence that we've, like you said, he's kind of dropped off a little bit in second halves of games, from a very high level. No coincidence that we've probably been better in the first half of both games so far. I just think it would be it would be madness to sell. But I mean, what would be an offer that's too good to turn down? I mean, let's say West Ham or Brentford or someone come in with £20 million. Like, are they gonna turn that down? You'd like to think that they would, and just say we're not even entertaining bids right now. But I don't know. Everyone's got their price, right?
I suppose.
Would you not like to think that if someone's offering that amount of money now, they'll offer that in January and this time next year?
That would be. I think my point would be that Stuart Webber and Norwich City recently have not wanted to do late business like this unless they've really planned for it. And I think if Andrew Bamidele got an offer, I got the impression that it was part of their plan to sell him if an offer came in. Obviously, so far there's been nothing proper anyway. So they've probably got a plan to replace him. I feel like maybe Gabby is not so necessary. I think if they'd been genuine interest at the start of the window, I think they would have been ready for that. But I think now it's probably too late. But I think it would also depend on how much they really do need the money, which is probably something only about 6 or 7 people know. So we would find out. Probably the interesting thing there is that James Ward-Prowse joined West Ham from Southampton now for £30 million. So it's not going to be more than £30 million, is it? Because someone in the Premier League is probably not going to value Gabby at more than that. So I don't know. He's not going to go for 12 million quid, is he? Let's put it like that. So, well, unless they're really strapped for cash, but let's hope not. So there we go. Cool. Well, I tell you what, let's move on to things we are not going to talk about, or as it's probably going to become this season, things that have happened since we were last on that we're not going to talk about, but we probably should mention. I'm happy to take the comments and questions from those watching live as well. So I don't know what there is about at the moment on that. But of course, Max Aarons is no longer a Norwich player. He has gone to Leeds. Oh, no. He's gone to Bournemouth. Southampton were interested as well, but they'd already been told, now I'm going off to rejoin Herr Farker. And then I was going to make a joke that I'm not going to do it. And then he went to Bournemouth instead because they came in last minute and offered Premier League football. So, I think that's worked out pretty well for everyone, really. I'd have said 7 million quid initially, could rise to 12, depends on the add-ons. It's probably it wasn't going to be anywhere above 10 initially. I thought that was pretty clear for a player with 1 year left on his contract. Gets to play Premier League football. He played one fantastic ball forward in the game against West Ham. I was like, oh, hello, Max. That would have been a great assist. So, good luck to him, yeah? Everyone's happy.
Yeah, and I think let's be fair here. We gave Timu a right good send-off and Emi Buendia. I think we need to recognise just how good Max Aarons was and has been for the last 5 seasons. 5 seasons.
5 years. Yeah.
And just how extraordinary it was. And we mentioned it before, but coming into that team that was not doing well, not a winning team when he came in for that his first ever league start at Portman Road as an 18-year-old. I'm not saying he was the reason behind our turnaround, but he came in as an 18-year-old and basically looked like he'd been playing there for years and years. I had a little, just to look back, and after that league debut he started in 146 of the next 150 games. Obviously a brilliant partnership with Emi, and in his first 2 championship seasons he played 86 matches, won 55, drew 21 and lost just 10. I mean, obviously in 2 really, really good teams, but he was at that level just brilliant. And I think I've been going for 20 years now, and we've had some very good right backs in that time. I think Max is right up there, if not. I think there's maybe a bit of revisionism because Stacey's come in and looked so good, and I think he's probably plateaued where he could have kicked on, or maybe we expected him to kick on, and he hasn't maybe done that in the way that we would have hoped. But I think under the right manager, I think he's been a victim a little bit like Pukki was of change of manager, meaning change of system, and him not maybe having the attributes that we're looking for in a Wagner team or a Smith team. But I see him doing well in the Premier League. I see him being a good player for Bournemouth, and I think he will be there for a few years. I don't think it'll be a Jamal Lewis situation where things kind of go south because he's not doesn't suit the style of play. I think he will do well at Bournemouth, and as and also just to finally add, has been a total model professional. Like, he could have thrown his toys out of the pram a year or two ago, but has been nothing but professional ever since. So I hope he gets, when he does eventually come back to play at Carrow Road, a really, really good reception, because he thoroughly deserves it.
Yeah, well said. And just to add to that, I'm very glad he didn't end up going to Leeds under Farker, not because it wouldn't have been lovely to have that reunion, but I think he needed that new coach sort of to develop him now. And I think going back to Farker wouldn't have been great for his development. There wouldn't have been new tricks to learn under the same coach. So to go to a Premier League club under a new coach, hopefully he will kick on as we all thought he would. Even though I think I agree he has sort of plateaued slightly, he's still been such a consistently excellent performer. When he came in, I was trying to remember. I think we'd played Pinto, Ben Marshall, and maybe Paslak at right back at the start of that season, and he just came in at Portman Road and looked like he belonged, and with his little angry face running up and down the touchline, which I absolutely loved. And he's been outstanding. And just a little word on the sort of academy recruitment, to sell both Aarons and Jamal Lewis for something might rise to like 27 million or something between the two of them is pretty impressive work. And well done, Luton Town, for giving the both of them to us.
Yes, quite indeed. It was a great piece of academy recruitment back in 2016. That was. I think the thing about Max is his consistency. I remember speaking to him, within a few months of him breaking through, and he was already sort of desperate to have consistent performances that were reliable. The guy was always available, and I think the way he carried the ball, just fantastic contributions he made to all of those teams. And he's just such a great lad as well. I spoke to him on a few occasions, and it's just brilliant. I do hope that we get to see him now kick on. That's what I'd like to see him, because, as I said, I think there was kind of a window of where Max operated, and other players sort of excelled beyond it, and other players sort of dropped miles below it. And Max was there, sort of Mr. Consistent, and it'll be really interesting to see where his sort of capability is now at Bournemouth under Iriola, who's really innovative, interesting coach. So good luck to Max. We'll all be watching and hoping he does really well. I do feel a bit sorry for him, because he did play in the game that Teemu Pukki played in, and most people were sort of saying that was going to be Max's last, pretty much, and no one barely batted an eyelid. So he hasn't really had a good bye. So I'm sure at some point he'll Norwich get promoted, he can come back to Carrow Road next season, and saying everything will be great, and the rest of that. So that's grand. Tim Krul could be off. So he's been linked with Luton today. Don't think quite how likely that is. Not sure, but Luton seem to be in the market for a backup goalkeeper, probably. So, being a Premier League backup goalkeeper is possibly better than a Championship backup goalkeeper. But so far, Luton have been linked with Tim Krul and John Ruddy. So if anyone could think of any other former Norwich City goalkeepers or current who might fancy that move, that could be linked with
David Marshall, is he still playing?
He is. He's he is somewhere. Hibbern, is he at Hibs?
He's in Scotland, isn't he?
Yeah. I think he's at Hibs at the moment. Yep. So there we go.
On Tim Krul, actually, during the whole game, it did strike me that players move on, songs change, etc. But when people started singing Johnny Rowe with Tim Krul still on the bench, that did feel particularly cruel. That did. The poor guy sat there thinking, well, they've already forgotten about me then. That's
it. Once you've lost your song, what else do you do?
Initially, I think they're trying to probably pricked up thinking they were singing about him, but sadly not.
Exactly. I think John Rowe's got another song as well, but I don't know if it's got all the words to it, and everyone's been too far away for me to actually listen out for that one. But anyway, anything else? Anything else in the comments that people are asking about, Steve?
Mark King asks, I know a little bit early on this evening, or do you think we're likely to see any more new signings before the window shuts? I mean, I would be inclined to agree with Dan that I would like to see another striker, maybe on loan from the Premier League. We're not going to spend any money or commit to anything. I feel like we could be light there with if we get an injury. And Lee Coates says, I think we need a CDM, so central defensive midfielder.
I agree, but no one else in the club seems to think so. So why bother? I asked David Wagner about the centre back situation. He seems quite relaxed about that as well. I mean, again, it's different, I think, if someone leaves from the squad as it is, but while no one does, I don't think they'll do anything.
It will be interesting against QPR in the Carabao Cup. Remember we're playing that on Wednesday. If Kenny doesn't play, which I assume he won't do, who plays the Kenny role in that formation? And obviously Sarah they've been pivoting a little bit more. But what you wouldn't want to do is have Kenny injured and Sarah having to play that role and then losing out on the creativity further up the pitch. So who is earmarked for that? Sørenson's obviously injured and probably hasn't got the passing range of Kenny. Gibbs, Wagner was reluctant to play him deep last season. Hopefully maybe he's become, got a bit more physical throughout the summer at stuff. That age you can grow pretty quickly. But yeah, quite interested to see who replaces Kenny in that role, because that's such a pivotal role for the way Wagner's team plays.
Yeah, completely agree. Obviously, it's a bit of a blow there that Jakob Sørensen is still injured and will be for a little bit as well, by the sounds of it. Cool, that's a grand one. What else was I going to bring up? Zoe Webber has done an interview with Talk Norwich City. The boys got a good chat with Zoe, so that's grand. Catch that if you wish to hear from her. Well done, lads. So yeah, that's good. Yeah.
One thing we can't talk about is our third kit, because we've not seen it yet, which seems a bit odd.
No, true. Now, there is going to be one. There has to be one, because that's going to be the women's team's change strip, because they won't have the green one. And apparently, the women are playing Cambridge United soon, or a team soon, that they will need to play their change kit in. So I'm thinking that would be a pretty good time to launch it, because then you can say the women's team are going to wear it first. How exciting. Nice. So there you go. That is my theory. That's what I would do. It doesn't mean that anyone, I can tell you they don't listen to me anymore, or they probably didn't in the first place. So I don't know, but we'll see how that all pans out. But yeah, I don't know what color it is or anything. How exciting.
You can say it was all your idea. So it's win-win.
Wouldn't dream of that. Any others?
I wanted to add that we haven't mentioned the fact that Christian Fastnacht has opened his account. He hasn't done an awful lot other than tuck that one away. But yeah,
you're right. You're right. And it was a complete howler of a mistake at the point when Southampton had 10 players on the pitch and there'd been a bit of a break, so maybe switched off. But Fastnacht's sort of ability to be in that position, it was actually a really good run. And in fact, Dimmy's ball wasn't great because it was completely overhit and went beyond him, because he could have just played him in. But that to me, he's clearly a very intelligent player and a genuine goal threat, because he got into that position to be freely available for the ball anyway. And he took it first time, didn't have to take a touch, loved it, just rifled it straight in the bottom corner. It was great. And I think that picture of him wheeling away to celebrate is already one of the pictures of the season. I love that picture. I don't know if it was Matt Usher at the club or whether it was from Paul Chesterton. I can't remember exactly which one. Maybe they've got the same picture because they're in the same place. I don't know, but it's just that point where he wheels away. His face is just like, yeah. I just think that's such a big moment for him to settle in.
Mark Robbins-esque, that celebration. It reminded me of. Brilliant. It's surely he'll be starting soon, you'd think.
Well, Wednesday probably.
Yeah. I think one thing I have noticed from this season is that the wide players, particularly Rowe and Fastnacht, have been a lot narrower, and I think ought to contribute a few. And I think that is partly because Stacey is more inclined to get up and down the line, whereas Max preferred to cut in. But I think we may. I mean, I think Fastnacht will get a run at some point, but I agree with you, Michael. Like, I think that he looks like he's got a goal threat about him. I mean, he took that really quite well, actually. Like, I know it looked like an easy chance, but he buried it really nicely. So, yeah, I mean, and he's not even in the starting lineup, so it's exciting.
And just to add one more bit of positivity, and I don't mean to start the one man Yanulis fan club, but as a guy who's blown very hot and cold, and often too cold for us at left back, and I thought it was a problem position going into this season, he's actually put together two really good performances in that position, both defensively and going forward. And he seems to like Stacey really suit the way that Wagner wants our fullbacks really high this season.
I totally agree with that point. However,
I'm clapping the point.
I still think Dimmy will do Dimmy things, and I would argue that maybe the first goal he doesn't really do a lot of closing down of that cross from Walker Peters, and then I still I still kind of think maybe don't do that in the penalty area in the 94th minute, whatever it is.
But again, it is the championship.
I'm also clapping that point.
Yeah.
Little insight. I mean, having given Sarah man of the match for the 2 games, Dimmy would have been next, but in each game he sort of did something where it's like, I can't give it to him. And yes, one of them was conceding the penalty.
We did have a man of the match for Dimmy at Hull, not by one of us 3, but by one of our other staples.
Well, no, don't name any names.
So he's impressing others as well.
I love it. Good old Dimmy. Right, I tell you what then, let's crack on, shall we, with a bit of this.
This is almost fantasy football.
Nothing screams fantasy football like the championship. Although first up, of course, for Norwich coming up is the trip to QPR in the first round, delayed by a week for Norwich and QPR, of the Carabao Cup. Bristol City away awaits the victor. What a carrot that is. So that's exciting. Slight revelation here. We're not going to do another one of these podcasts until next month. So just so you all know, for various reasons. But coming up then after the QPR game, Norwich have a visit from Millwall on Sunday. Then they're going to Huddersfield, and then they, I think, host Stoke. And there's Rotherham in there, isn't there as well?
I think Rotherham. I think they might go Huddersfield away and then Rotherham away, and then I think it might be international break and then Stoke. Tell me if I'm wrong.
So basically, I've written those all down wrong, but that's fine. They've got all those teams. Basically, it's not a bad run, is it? Coming up, if you were looking at that. And looking at the championship start so far, you think, okay, 136-point train.
It's I tell you what it is. It's a physical run coming up, isn't it? In the league, Millwall, Huddersfield, Rotherham, and one thing that was noticeable against Hull wasn't at the Southampton game, but at live at Hull, at Canaries against Hull, was that we looked much bigger than them, My God, it's probably since the Lambert era, maybe Alex Snill's Wembley season, where we've actually looked properly physical, looked like we can properly compete. But obviously you can look big and not compete. So it'd be interesting actually over these
That's my football career right there.
Over these 3 league games, and we did pretty well against these sides last season. So it's interesting to see if that physicality is going to make the difference. And what you really want with this physicality is really to get you the ball and then to be able to sort of dominate the ball. So it'd be good to see if that happens. QPR wise, as I said, interesting to see who plays the Kenny role. Interesting to see if we go with 2 strikers or if we go with more of a number 10. Interesting to see if Kellen Fisher gets a start as well in the cup, which would be nice to see.
I mean, it's an interesting point. They are definitely a bigger side now, Norwich, and then that probably helps when everyone goes and marks everyone at a corner, and John Rowe is in the middle of the penalty area with no one near him, because he was probably by a distance the smallest player in a Norwich shirt on the pitch, and then he puts in a brilliant header like that. So there's probably counterbalances and things that help, with that all round. Before the international break, Steve, and if we look across the championship as well, these are all sides that have sort of had I say it's only 2 games, so who knows? But no one's flying other than Ipswich.
Yeah,
I think they've already won it, actually. I don't know if they or maybe check that.
It does feel like we are playing for second now, but that's fine. Yeah, we can join them. We can join them in the Premier League hopefully next year. I feel like maybe we have a tendency to underestimate Millwall because we beat them twice last year, but they did finish above us, and I kind of echo Dan's point really. Like, I feel although like they have been 2 different styles, Hull and Southampton so far, they're both kind of 2 progressive managers who I think wanted to play with the ball on the floor and weren't going to be kind of like, all right, then break us down. Hull were a little bit like that, but also were a bit crap and not very well organised. But so I think a run of Ainsworth, Rowett and Warnock will thoroughly blow that out the water. And I think it will be a different test. Like the cup game, like who really cares? Like I'd almost rather we didn't have to go to Ashton Gate on a Tuesday night. So it'd be nice to see us play well. But the 2 league games will be a different kind of test to what we've faced so far, I think. I think Southampton away, brilliant point. But I think if we're playing that counter-attacking style, you couldn't really ask for a better opponent in some ways than one that wants to play with a high line and keep the ball. Millwall won't be like that. Huddersfield won't be like that. I think we know that much. So I'll be really interested to see if we can kind of play that way in a game where we might have to unlock teams, because that is where I would slightly say from an attacking perspective we might be a bit weaker. But who knows? Maybe we'll turn it on again. And as Dan says, the physicality that we've got now means that we should be able to compete with these teams better than we have done in the past. We always beat Millwall, so yeah.
Can we say we're a threat from set pieces now? Can we move it up to genuine threat from set pieces?
I feel like when it goes towards Duffy's head, I have the kind of slight belief that it might go in. Whereas with Hanley, I know it's always going to balloon into sort of row N or something like that. So,
well, let's wait until the sample grows a little bit beyond 2 games. But yes, indeed. Brilliant. Okay, well that's all going for that. Kenny, other business? Anyone got anything else they want to bring up, or any other questions, Steve, or comments to the?
I mean, I don't know if this is sort of apropos of anything, but the Ratchas says, one question that I've always wondered: do the Norwich players have work email? Great question. I don't know if have you got any insight? Do they have Microsoft Teams meetings?
Well, Dan will probably. I bet there is one.
They do have emails. They do not have access to it though. So they're set up, and so if someone, so there are people at the club who will check it for them, but they don't have access to it because God knows what they get sent out those email addresses.
There's always someone who can work out the template of someone's email from their company they work for. So, great question. Love that one. Well, I haven't got any Kenny other business other than his record-breaking 15-second yellow card. 15 seconds, fantastic lunge on Will Smallbone. I mean, it was 15 seconds at the point at which Darren England put up the yellow card. So the tackle itself was a good, 2 or 3 seconds before that. I think it's the quickest yellow card in the championship since Opta started recording the stats, which was like 2013-14. So
well done, Kenny.
There you go.
And
nice.
Kenny the captain now as well, and still unbeaten. So
good old Kenny. He's doing a great turn. Right, well, in that case, I think I'm going to call it time, if that's all right, for this edition of On the Ball, the Norwich City podcast. There's always loved lots of added time. If you're yet to do so, make sure you subscribe via your podcast player of choice. The pod is available free for everyone on your usual player, and we stream the recording of the podcast live in video form on my social media channels. Have a search and I'm sure you'll find them. Ratings and reviews wherever prompted are always hugely appreciated. And if you want to get in touch with any questions or topic proposals, sling me a direct message, just like Matt McNally did on Twitter at michaeljbailey. A big thanks to our wonderful duo this evening. Dan, have a lovely rest of your week and month.
You too, Michael. Thanks very much.
Oh, thank you. Steve, you do that as well.
You have a great August, Michael. I really hope that for you.
What a great month, hey? We will be back next month. Yes, indeed. Until then, never mind the danger. And we're clear. There we go. Thanks everyone for watching. We're all going to wave and we will see you anon. Anon being September. Bye. Bye.